Today we'll be taking a look at my process of framing and design for this filigree-like flow. We'll also be exploring some of the basic pre-polish work that I do on most of my pieces. Working a flow piece like this, I'll have a drawing and idea flow in mind, but pieces normally change and shift as the piece comes together. And if you follow my work, you'll see I produce many different styles. Sometimes they are extremely thought out and I know where every wire goes. But sometimes I like to stop overthinking, start bending, and let the magical flow of the wire take over. We're starting this piece with around a foot of 10 gauge half round wire. And to start, I'm just going to pick a point a few inches from the end and make my first bend there. Now we're going to start to bend our first swirl. So I'll try to bend it as much as I can with my fingers, trying to keep it flat the whole time. And then when I've done as much as I can do with my hands, then I'll grab it with the pliers and I'll be able to work it a lot more and finish this bend. When working the swirls I'm desiring in this piece, I'm going to do my best to keep it all flat. Not all of my swirls are like this. I also understand not everybody will bend wire this thick with your fingers, so we'll explore some other methods of bending thicker wires like this in another video. This video is mostly going to be an overview of this type of a frame. I'll be making some shorter videos specifically focused on the exact ways I'm bending and working the wire in each of these steps. This is more of a broad look at the overall process. As you'll notice, sometimes I'll mark up my wire with my pliers. It's obviously best to do as much clean work as possible, but to get that flow perfect, sometimes you gotta work it hard. And then just do your best to polish it up and clean it up later. Also, there are many options of nylon tipped pliers if that works better for you. I owned a couple pair and I destroyed them pretty quickly, so I haven't purchased any new ones. Instead, I just invested in better polishing equipment. So there we have our first swirl, more wire to keep it going. Now we're going to grab this with our pliers, kind of squeeze it and tighten it up. Really nice, tight, swirly spiral. It's really great to have a to-scale referenced drawing to be able to lay your pieces on to help you keep it going in the direction that you're desiring. So this part right here will be covered with wire eventually. This will be more of the internal framing. Keep referencing the drawing. Make sure we're going in the right direction. When I do have to grip the wire that's going to be on the top of the piece, I try to make sure to grip it in a spot that isn't going to get a lot of attention. Still try to keep the top wire the cleanest. Once again, keeping it pretty flat on this swirl. But ultimately, this one isn't going to be quite as flat. So I'm just going to do what I can. It's in some cases like this, no matter how good a drawing, sometimes the wire wants to do what it wants to do. But that's the beauty of the medium, isn't it? I actually end up preferring the swirls that the wire does more than any swirls that I could draw myself. We're going to keep checking it to our drawing any chance we get. Just going to tighten it up, squeeze it a little bit more. There we go, that's looking pretty good. So we want to keep the swirl pinched as we pull the wire around. Now that we're at a good stopping point with the 10 gauge half round wire, I'm going to pick up my 14 gauge half round dead soft wire. My frames aren't necessarily even what most people would consider a traditional frame anyway. I make the design and will put all the wire together to make it work. In this case, the function follows the form. The form is probably the most important thing for me in this piece. Although the function is going to be just fine, I put my pieces to very rigorous standards. Running the wire on the underside or on the inside of the piece, these are the ones that we're going to use to tie off. Sometimes with a lot of the wire, especially these swirls and different things that I'm making before anything else in the piece, I'll go ahead and just twist it around as if it's already being twisted around a wire. I'll run other wires down through it to anchor it in. I end up having so many wires running through my pieces by the end of them anyway. This is for sure going to be very sturdy and very secured. Keep pinching and adjusting. This wire is getting a little bit short for what I was wanting to do. Maybe I should have cut it a little bit longer. But I think it'll work. It has a little bit of a tie off. Based on the location of this wire, that'll be enough. So it's kind of a short tie off. I'd prefer to have more wire, but I'm not going to get stopped right now because of this. Sometimes it's worth it to cut another length of wire and redo the swirls, but because this wire is more decorative than it is structural, I'm going to let this one fly. So this tie off is going to be pretty small. We're going to just bend it around as if it's going around a wire. This will be enough of a tie off. We'll run more wire down through it to anchor it in. As I said before, it is mostly decorative. So now we're going to use this 8 gauge half round dead soft wire. We're going to do as much as we can to bend it with our hands. I'm just trying to start the top flow headed towards our bell. To make the bell, we'll add a loop through here. And this will also give us a spot that's dedicated just for the bell. We don't need to have any other wires running through here or around it. Nothing's going to get in the way of the chain sliding through there. Once again, this tie-off is a little bit shorter than I was hoping for, but I think that we can do a pretty good job getting this anchored in with how many other wires we're going to be running through here. Also, this is just incredibly thick wire, so it doesn't really have much of a chance of bending. For now, I'll just make a hook that we can put other wires in, and then crimp it shut. So just keep bending as much as we can with our fingers. Starting that angle there. There's one point that makes it look like there's a wire holding all the other wires together. We're going to start that little loop here. Kind of looking back at the drawing, making sure that we're getting the right angles. And so this was a little bit unexpected, but we're actually going to tie a knot in the wire to get the look that I'm going for. Sometimes there's no compromise. I didn't plan for this, but I have my drawing and I'm going to do as much as I can to get that result. Really pinching it, pulling it. Keep adjusting, moving it around. Look at it compared to the drawing. Keep adjusting, moving it around. You really got to wrestle with this thicker 8 gauge. It's starting to work out. Sometimes the drawing isn't the only thing that we can go off of. Sometimes you gotta pick up the other pieces and just make sure that it'll all come together correctly. So now we're bending the bottom point of our piece. So now we'll start with our 800 grit sandpaper. I'll start with sanding every one of these wires. I'll push more on the areas that need it more, but in general, the whole visible part of the wire will get sanded. I found it's a good idea to polish all of the thicker wires, because even brand new wires have little lines running down the length of them. I'm going to speed this up a little bit. Smoothing out every nick or mark that I put in there, at least on the visible side. Doing pre-polish work in the beginning can save you a lot of headache later. So the 800 grit is not going to leave a super shiny polish. So this is just the pre-polish, smoothing out every mark or nick that I've put on the visible side. Trying to sand in every direction, using circular motions whenever possible. So now we'll pick up this other piece, bend it, so we can fit this together. So now that we've gotten it all sanded down to an 800 grit finish, I'm going to connect phase. Sometimes I'll polish down pieces a little bit nicer, but I know most of the visible wires on this will get hit up with another polish at the end of the piece anyway. Hopefully that can hook right there. And we'll end up wrapping this all together in semi-thought out ways, but really just kind of going for it, doing whatever it takes to make sure that it's secure. So that's about as much as I'm going to be able to fit onto this first video. I'm going to split them up, and we'll have another video later showing the rest of this piece coming together.